Okay, hello everyone. Welcome to HBL today. We're going to continue the context, the historical context of the Cultural Revolution, okay, that occurred in 1966. So what I'm going to do events that occurred just before 1966, so that you have an understanding of why the Cultural Revolution occurred. And so if you turn to your notes, page 4, that's where we are at today, all right? Now, so if you can recall, the last time we stopped, we talked about the Great Leap Forward that occurred in 1958. We talked about how the Great Leap Forward was a disaster, and Mao Zedong had to purge Peng Dehuai at the Lushan conference because Peng Dehuai was speaking out against Mao's economic policies. So obviously Mao is feeling a bit vulnerable at this point in time, because he does recognize that his economic policies were not working, and that's why there are members who are actually criticizing his policies, right? And so we move forward to the year 1963. Now, 1963 was a very important year because it was in this year whereby Mao's cult of personality starts to develop quite strongly in the PRC, with the compiling and, in some sense, the publishing of Mao's Little Red Book, right? So what was Mao's Little Red Book? Basically, it's a collection of thoughts and sayings by Mao since the 1920s. And it can range from many issues like, behavior of the Communist Party, what is class struggle, what is culture, what is art. And really it's Mao's sayings about these issues. And they compile it together into a book. And basically, the person that compiled this, there are two persons. They did this. One is Lin Biao, working together with Chen Poda, to compile Mao's sayings into this Little Red Book. And when I come back to school, I will see you. I will show you a copy of this Little Red Book. So this is an example of how this Little Red Book looks like. The one that I have was published quite recently, so it's quite modern. If you're able to find the Little Red Book that was published in 1963, I think that one is quite rare and it's quite worth a lot of money. If you can find the so-called the first publishing copy, all right? 33 chapters in this book with all Mao's saying. And Lin Biao made the Little Red Book the circular Bible of China. And of course, what he meant was that it was, Mao's sayings were revered. Mao's saying becomes all sorts of truth for the Chinese community. A copy was distributed to every soldier, and became the basic text used in study sessions. So soldiers would gather together to study Mao's saying and see how Mao's quotes and Mao's ideas can be applied in their lives or even in the army. And in all, 750 million copies of the Little Red Book were distributed across China. And basically, the book was used in schools, the book was used in universities, and basically everyone had a copy of it to read it. And you must understand that, when you think about 750 million copies, that was roughly about the population of China at that point in time. And so nearly almost everyone had a copy of Mao's Little Red Book. So because obviously the PLA had to read Mao's saying, so from an ideological point of view, the PLA was politically indoctrinated with Mao's saying, and because of that, the PLA, the People's Liberation Army, would become totally committed to support Mao. So as mentioned, in shops, in the factories, workers began their day, and during break time, they also will take out the literate book and read communally. So they read it together. You can see in this photograph, released by the China's official news agency in 1969, the agricultural workers, the farmers, the peasants will read Mao's literate book. Okay, and of course, they'll stop, after they have done their work, and they will start to read. And you can see, interestingly, in this photograph, there are women and there are also men reading Mao's book. Now, the second literature that was also quite important for the Chinese people was the Diary of Lei Feng. All right. And basically, the Diary of Lei Feng, again, was part of Mao's propaganda. And really, the Diary of Lei Feng was a daily journal of a humble PLA lorry driver whose every thought and action was inspired by his devotion to Mao Zedong. Okay, published around the same year as the Little Red Book. And if you read the diary, so what happened was that Lei Feng died because he was accidentally crushed under the wheels of a truck while faithfully going about his assigned duty. And I mean, it's an accident, but from the diary and through the propaganda, it was able to portray Lei Feng basically as a very dedicated soldier, a dedicated person that, dying because he wanted to serve Mao and serve the Chinese people. And the simple message really was that every Chinese person, no matter how humble his role in life, should try to reach Lei Feng's dedication. And basically, it was supposed to inspire people. And Lei Feng Diary, together with the Little Red Book, became an essential text for study in Chinese schools. But closer examination for this diary, actually, what happened was that historians begin to realize that this so-called diary and story was a total fabrication made up by the government's propaganda department. But even though people knew that it was made up, because the propaganda was so strong, many people were inspired by this so-called literature. Now, then we move on to this year in 1965. And I'm going to talk about the life of this person known as Wu Han. Okay, so Wu Han was a playwright. And as a playwright, you organize play. You write plays and then you put it up for performances in the theater. And one of the plays that basically Wu Han did was this play known as The Dismissal of Han Rui from Office, which was performed between 1961 and 1965. And this play was set in the days of the Ming Dynasty. All right. But what is more important basically was what was being said in the play. All right. So basically, the play told about the story of Hai Rui, a court official who was demoted and punished after bravely defying the orders of the cruel emperor, the Ming emperor. Okay, so it's a player. So this official, brave, didn't want to follow the orders of this cruel emperor. The problem was that even though this play was set in the Ming Dynasty, some people will interpret that this play was a reference to Mao's previous dismissal of Peng Dehuai for opposing the Great Leap Forward. In other words, the Ming Emperor, that's the play, right? And, you can interpret it in some sense that the emperor, basically, the metaphor is that the emperor symbolizes Mao Zedong. And this court official symbolizes Peng Dehuai. And Peng Dehuai was, trying to stand up against Mao at the Lushan conference, just like how this court official was trying to stand up against the Ming emperor. And so some people interpreted the play as such, that Wu Han was using this play to criticize Mao Zedong. All right. And of course, because of that interpretation, now Wuhan becomes a target for people who are loyal towards Mao. And of course, if from Mao's point of view, then Wuhan is also not seen to be of a decent person under, I mean, in front of Mao's perspective, right? So the plot thickens. So what happens that Wuhan had a boss, and this boss is the mayor of let me see, I believe Beijing, right? The mayor of Beijing, Peng Zhen. So what happens that so after the play is being played for a few years, in November 1965, an article published in a Shanghai newspaper attacked Wuhan, charging him with blackening Mao's good name because of the fact that Wuhan was in charge of this play. And naturally, Peng Zhen, because Peng Zhen was Wuhan's boss, Peng Zhen was also held responsible for allowing such anti-socialist plays to be performed. And Peng was an ally of Deng Xiaoping and Liu Shaoqi. And if you can recall, Deng Xiaoping and Liu Shaoqi tried to introduce capitalist elements after the Great Leap Forward. And for those who are loyal towards Mao, then these capitalist elements were considered by some loyal followers of Mao as not good, as like going against the ideals of the communist ideology and revolution. So what happens now is that the CCP is experiencing, in some sense, a conflict. Right? There are people that are very loyal towards Mao, and there are people that are perceived to be not as loyal towards Mao. And I use the word perceive because most likely they are actually quite loyal towards Mao, but because of some of their ideologies and also a bit about a bit of political rivalry, these people are then perceived as not so loyal towards Mao. And so there is, in some sense, tension within the CCP. And the group of people that are basically claim to be very loyal towards Mao, they are known as the Shanghai Forum. So you can recall previously, the newspaper article was published in Shanghai. And the Shanghai Forum basically was a group of hardline leftist radicals who believe in the harshest measure being taken against those who oppose Mao. So for example, Wuhan will be seen as a person who opposed Mao because Wuhan came out with this so-called anti-socialist play. And so the Shanghai Forum begins to attack people that they think that are not so loyal towards Mao Zedong. And in this Shanghai Forum, there are many people, but we're going to focus on this small group within the Shanghai Forum known as the Gang of Four. And the Gang of Four are very influential, and they really are seen as people that are very loyal towards Mao. So we have Wang Hongwen, we have Zhang Chunqiao, and Yao Wenyuan. So Yao Wenyuan was the person who wrote the article attacking Wuhan in 1965. And in some sense, the leader of the Gang of Four is Jiang Qing, which is Mao's wife. All right. So Jiang Qing urged that steps be taken to remove Liu Shaoqi and Deng Xiaoping from positions in the CCP. So you can see the political rivalry starting to kick in. And Jiang Qing basically was a movie star, and so she wanted to use culture, especially the arts, right? Theater. And basically, Jiang Qing wanted Chinese culture to be cleansed of those writers and artists whose attitude betrayed their lack of commitment to Mao's revolution. So later on, you will learn that how she will later on transform, right, some of the plays, theater, to be really, really communist in nature. Okay, and we'll look at that later on. So Jiang Qing wanted to really cleanse Chinese culture. And so plays like the one that Wuhan did, obviously is going to be replaced by socialist plays, right? Now, in May 1966, there was the formation of the CCRG, okay, the Central Cultural Revolution Committee. And basically, this committee was a subcommittee of the Politburo. So the Politburo is a very high-level organization within the CCP already. And this so-called committee directed the Cultural Revolution. There were 17 members in this committee. Of course, within the 17 members includes the Gang of Four, which really are the key leaders of this committee. And Mao also then announced to the CCP that there were enemies within the party that were counter-revolutionary revisionists. And of course, Mao was targeting people like Liu Shaoqi, targeting enemies like Deng Xiaoping, who unfortunately had tried to introduce capitalist elements after the Great Leap Forward to try to save the Chinese economy. But Mao saw this as going against communist ideology, because how can you introduce capitalist elements? So you must understand that Mao in some sense is quite purist in nature. Purist in nature meaning that really believe that the society should follow wholeheartedly to the communist ideology, and there should not be any capitalist elements. And so whatever that Deng Xiaoping did and Liu Shaoqi did, Mao obviously did not like it. And of course, some people argue that Mao Zedong saw Deng Xiaoping and Liu Shaoqing as a threat to his power as well. Now, what happened then was that in 1966, there's this thing known as the Dazhibao incident in Beijing University, right? What is Dazhibao? Basically, Dazhibao is known as big posters. Okay, and in the past, how people communicate to get their ideas across is that they write their ideas on big posters, and they will paste these ideas everywhere. All right, and one of these big posters, 大字报, they paste these ideas in the Beijing University. This poster was made by this person known as Nie Yuanzhi. And then what happened was that after this poster was being pasted in the university, Mao reprinted this poster, and in some sense, historians have argued that this poster also sparked the start of the Cultural Revolution. So the question really is what was said in this poster, all right? So this is Nie Yuanzhi, all right? Wrote a big character poster, and what she did was that she started attacking the administration of the university, okay, and criticized the university of having obviously certain values and ideology that is not pure and not aligned to the communist so-called ideology. So Mao had a poster reprinted in the People's Daily, which is the newspaper. And then subsequently, faculty at the country's other universities soon began to do the same. They started to criticize party members. And from Mao's point of view, that's a good thing, because what Mao really wanted was that to criticize the party members within the party that are not loyal to him, Mao Zedong, and or they might be deviating away from the communist ideology. And so Mao wanted to encourage this criticism, all right? So this is an example of a 大字报 on display, okay? And so, usually what happens is that people, will paste these 大字报 and they read the words, they get inspired, and then they will, hopefully, not hopefully, but they will then do certain things that the 大字报 ask them to do, in some cases to attack the enemies of Mao Zedong, right? Now, then in 1966, Mao did something really amazing, if you ask me. Okay, Mao swims across the Yangtze River. And you can see Mao Zedong over here. Let me see whether I can click a laser pointer. So Mao is over here. Okay, I think these are all his bodyguards, I think. Okay, and this is quite amazing because at the point in time, Mao was quite elderly in nature. And by swimming across the Yangtze River, basically it was to tell the Chinese people that he's still alive, he's vigorous, and he's going to do something great. And that, of course, the great event was the Cultural Revolution. And this swim really, in some sense, galvanized the people, right? So you can see in this poster, commemorate the first anniversary of Chairman Mao swim over the Yangtze River, follow Chairman Mao in moving forward in wind and waves, 1967. And you can see behind, after he made that swim, right, people started to also pick up swimming, all right, and follow Mao Zedong's so-called example. And you need to swim, you need to revitalize the revolution, and so on. Another poster, this is the 10th year. So 10 years after the swim, you can see how the Chinese people really revere this so-called event. Okay, and you can see Mao at the back, the poster. People are seem quite happy and enthusiastic over Mao Zedong. Now let's watch a video, and in this video it talks about the background of the Cultural Revolution, and it also shows a video of Mao swimming across the Yangtze River. All right.
Mao Zedong Wansui lived 10,000 years.
In 1966, Mao Zedong had a problem. The Chinese leader, who had led a peasant army to victory in the Chinese Civil War and established the Communist People's Republic of China in 1949, was getting old. Worse, his radical policies had devastated the country and triggered the deadliest famine known to human history. By the early 1960s, Mao's once great influence and public presence were at an all-time low, and there were rumors that he was dying, or even dead already. He needed to find a way to seal his legacy as the face of Chinese communism, and a new revolution to lead. It started in a river. The Great Leap Forward was a disaster. It was Mao's 1958 plan to quickly industrialize China by working its massive peasant population non-stop.
He promises to transform the People's Republic into an instant paradise through the sheer force of numbers.
Forcing workers in the countryside to farm crops on government-run communes, and millions more to manufacture crude steel in homemade blast furnaces. And even though Mao told the world that the plan was succeeding,
everywhere the communists report, production records are being broken.
The truth was much more desperate.
They flood the fields, exhaust the soil, and farm production, instead of going up, goes down.
The Chinese people were being forced to work tirelessly on land they once owned themselves, and they were starting to lose morale. And despite reports of widespread famine with millions of people starving to death, Mao kept production quotas high.
The pace grows more frantic. Ceaselessly without rest, one observer writes, the countryside is in convulsion.
Mao's Great Leap Forward ended in 1962. By that time, somewhere between 23 and 55 million people had died in the famine. Over in the Soviet Union, a different political upheaval was happening. Soviet leader Joseph Stalin, who Mao modeled himself after, was dead. And Mao watched as Nikita Khrushchev, Stalin's successor, implemented a period known as de-Stalinization, where Khrushchev set out to reverse many of Stalin's policies and dismantle the personality cult that had formed around him. Mao saw his own legacy potentially suffering the same fate. His communist revolution was long over, and his ideas weren't taken as seriously after the disaster of the Great Leap Forward. It was starting to look like Mao's place in the pantheon of powerful communist figures like Vladimir Lenin and Karl Marx was in peril. This is where the river comes in. Mao had a reputation for being a strong swimmer, and even used it as a symbol of his ideology. In 1956, he swam across China's biggest river, the Yangtze, in 3 highly publicized swims to demonstrate that big things like US imperialism didn't intimidate him. 10 years later, Mao took on the Yangtze again to dispel rumors of his failing health, this time with cheering crowds swimming alongside him. He brought his personal photographer, who snapped this photo of the aging dictator in the river, and another one showing Mao waving to his fellow swimmers with the landmark Wuhan Yangtze River Bridge behind him, an iconic architectural achievement of the communist government and proof that he was at the Yangtze. The swim made the front page of China's state newspaper, reporting that Mao swam around 15 kilometers, a little more than 9 miles, in a span of 65 minutes, which meant the 72-year-old would have shattered world speed records. A lot of people outside of China laughed at the outlandish story, but some saw the swim for what it was, a sinister sign. pointing out that Mao's swims from a decade earlier preceded the catastrophic Great Leap Forward. Experts feared that Mao was on the verge of kicking off another disastrous period of turmoil in China. They were right. 2 months before the swim...
Okay, we will stop here because I will show you the video, the remaining part of the video after another part of the lesson is over. So from this short video, you can see sometimes the cause of the Cultural Revolution and the swimming of the Mao swimming the Yangtze River, which really in some sense was one of the trigger events that caused the start or started the Cultural Revolution in 1966. Now, in August 1966, Mao then publishes a large character wall poster, and this poster was known as Bombard the Headquarters. So what is the headquarters? Really, the headquarters here refers to the CCP headquarters. And really, the whole idea of this idea, bombard the headquarters, was a message to tell the Chinese people, especially the young Chinese people, it's time for you to criticize the CCP, which is a bit ironic because Mao was from the CCP, but Mao wanted the young people to criticize the CCP because Mao wanted the people to find faults with people, the enemies within the CCP, people that are not loyal to him, okay, and to criticize them, to attack them. And basically, of course, the two leaders that Mao was focusing were Liu Shaoqi and Deng Xiaoping, all right? So in 1966, during the 11th plenum, which is like an assembly of the CCP, they met, and so-called in this meeting, a few things happened. Members at the meeting elevated Lin Biao to become vice chairman of the party. Liu Shaoqi demoted. And the Communist Party Central Committee adopted the Cultural Revolution as official party policy and issued a document, 16 points on the Cultural Revolution on 8 August. In other words, basically now in writings, officially, the Cultural Revolution starts with all these so-called ideas, 16 points, right? Now, and really to start off the Cultural Revolution, one of the things that happened was the August rally in 1966. Okay, so the first one occurred in the Tiananmen Square. Over 1 million people, a majority of them Red Guards in their teens or early 20s, packed into Tiananmen Square in Beijing, waving little red books, okay, chanted, "Chairman Mao, may you live for 1,000 years." And sang Mao Zedong is the red sun rising in the east. Okay, and so these rallies were organized by Lin Biao and Chen Boda, again to really highlight that Mao Zedong was the important leader for China. So you can see these are the Red Guards, all right, young people that are loyal, enthusiastic, and want to support Mao Zedong. Okay, let's watch a short clip on basically one of the rallies that occurred in 1966.
Our great motherland has never been so prosperous and so full of vigor. Our national defense has never been so strong.
So you can see the Red Guards. There's Mao.
Chairman Mao long ago pointed out that the class struggle between the proletariat and the bourgeoisie and the struggle between the roads of socialism and capitalism exist throughout the historical period of socialism. The great proletarian cultural revolution constitutes a new stage in the struggle between the two classes and between the two roads. In the course of this revolution, the struggle is still going on between the revolutionary proletarian line represented by Chairman Mao and the bourgeois line of opposing revolution. Those who cling to the erroneous line are only a small handful of persons who divorce themselves from the people, oppose the people, and oppose Mao Zedong's thought. And this spells their certain failure.
You can see how enthusiastic the Red Guards are, waving the little red book.
Comrades and friends, at present, an excellent situation prevails in the world. The great upheavals of the past few years in the world show that the days of imperialism headed by the United States, modern revisionism, and all reaction are numbered.
Okay, so you have a sense of, you know, the rallies that occurred in 1966. I want one example of a rally, yeah. So, sorry. So between August and November 1966, there were in all 8 mass rallies in Tiananmen Square. Okay, Mao did not attend some of these rallies, but Lin Biao, assisted by Jiang Qing, used the rallies to excite the crowds to even greater display of affection and loyalty towards Mao Zedong. And so that's why some historians have argued that the reason why the Cultural Revolution occurred was really a moment whereby they wanted to get the people to, in some sense, pledge their loyalty towards Mao again, because Mao's popularity was waning after the Great Leap Forward, and the Cultural Revolution was another moment whereby, you know, Mao could exert his influence, exert his authority onto China once again. Right? So we're going to stop here for today. That's the end of the HBL lesson. So remember to do your DBQ question. Please do the OPCVL and the compare contrast question, and you will need to submit this work to me when I see you for the next history lesson. All right, so thank you everyone, and take care. Bye-bye.